Hey everybody, it's Justin from the Camera Shop of Muskegon. I hope you guys all had a great 4th of July holiday celebrating 255 years of America, and I hope you guys got to spend some nice quality time with family members and friends. It is time for the Facebook Photo Challenge recap, and this week's subject is, of course, food photography. And as we go about our business, we always kind of recap from the very beginning what the whole idea of the photo challenge was. So I'm just kind of adding on as to, it's we've got the description of the food challenge, and of course I always talk about inspiration and looking up your food photography. So it's going through and doing that quick Google search for food photography and checking out what other photographers have created and what they've made, and looking at how they approach food photography. Of course, I can quickly do that real quick just by saying Google and just typing in food photography, and we go ahead and click on that, and you can see all these beautiful examples of food photography. Here's an example of a flat lay, shooting from above and below, and then kind of the tradition, the other angle is going to be the one that's kind of approaching things at that eye level, kind of as you would sit down at the table looking at it from your point of view, sitting at a table. So I'm going to go back real quick to the email and just kind of cruise through the tips and tricks here for you guys. That's the really easy thing to do, is just Google search any of your inspirational material, because you're going to find great results of what has already been successfully done in the industry or out there for you. So beyond inspiration, we have lighting. The key to every successful photograph is the quality of light, and the best light for capturing tasty food photography is natural light. What's the best source of natural light? Well, window light is the best, of course. So wander around your house and look for the best source of window light. You might luck out, and that window might be in your kitchen or your dining room. But don't hesitate to set up a shooting station in your living room, a sunroom, a bedroom. Wherever you get the best light, that's where you want to set up and do your food photography. Be mindful of the time of day, because during the time of day, that's going to change your quality of light throughout the day, and it's also going to change which room in the house is going to be your best room for capturing the best lights. Light will change from the morning to the afternoon to the evening. The kitchen may have the best light in the morning. The living room may have the best light in the afternoon, so always follow the light. Alternatively, you can use professional studio strobes or LED lights like I'm using here for my setup. If you guys see a rectangular light in the catch light of my glasses, I've got a big LED panel over here to my right, a big one off to my left back here to kind of get a nice highlight here, get full view here on my face to just kind of light the scene. You want to do a similar thing with your lights for food photography. LED light panels are really great. They're going to give you a constant level of control. You can change these. The ones that I'm using are bicolor. This kit comes with 2 light stands, the 2 LED panels, barn doors, and different diffusers, and even a remote to control your lights wirelessly, so you can sit behind the camera and not even really have to go to your lights and change them. But when I use these in daylight balance, right now they're 4,300 degrees Kelvin, which means they have kind of that little bit of a warmer tint to match my fluorescent lights that are coming from the display cases behind me. I'm trying to match that light. Fluorescent lights have like a 4,000 degree temperature, anywhere from 3,800 degrees Kelvin to about 4,300 degrees Kelvin. So balancing between 4,300 and this gives me that close approximation to the equalizing and balancing of light. So be mindful of that. LEDs are great for food photography, so I encourage you to use those. This set is $6.99, comes with a carry case. I love using it for my Facebook Lives. Just a really awesome ProMaster the 1000s. So if you guys are interested in those, you can just ask me about them. Most popular selling LED kit here at the store. The other thing that you can use is going to be your creative strobes, like a flash of some sort. You can wireless flash. That allows you to use a lot of modifiers. You can the light is always going to be consistent, and it's going to flash and be really bright, so you can get a maximum depth of field. So you can shoot at f8, have your ISO set to 100, have this really nice daylights balance. You can get big soft boxes for those flash modifiers, and that makes it appear like window light. So if you don't have window light to use, you can use this artificial light, and that's the way to go. Sandy says hi. The other Sandy is saying hello today, and we also have David Black, he says, welcome, you're making me hungry. David, it's that time of day. I know I am looking forward to going home or going out after this. I've got a friend in town, and I'm thinking about going to the deck, get some tasty food here after work. If I don't go to the deck, I just started HelloFresh, an unsolicited plug for HelloFresh, and having meals sent to your house, and starting to do my own creative food creation at home. And I'm really looking forward to using that. So hopefully I haven't worsened the case of your hunger. But I can't make any promises because there are a lot of examples of some great food photography that I'm going to be bringing to you guys. So just stay put and get ready for that. So beyond lighting, let's talk about angles and perspective. Perspective is key on how you present and tell your story with food photography or any other type of photography. Think of food that you're shooting beforehand, its size, its shape, its height, what's unique about it. And there's going to be different ways of best capturing that, and it's really important to capture the details. So be mindful and cognizant of all these factors that go into each other. The first in capturing the food is kind of at that 45-degree angle of representation, just kind of like you're sitting down at the table and we're looking right at that food from kind of that POV, the personal point of view. And just kind of letting the viewer kind of just take that in as they would normally see it. The other one that I'm a fan of that's become very, very popular is that flat lay, and that's being able to look at food from the top down. And it really just kind of, instead of seeing the depth of a space with that typical kind of 45-degree point of view angle, you're shooting things from the top, and it makes it very elemental. You're flattening out the space, and we're really looking at the raw elements of the food, but sometimes it's the best way to represent the food. But my personal preference, I love seeing the flat lays. It's just something that's kind of been happening over the last 10 years. I worked for a food studio in Minneapolis, and that time I was there was between 2011 and 2012, and they did a lot of that standard kind of 45-degree view. There wasn't a lot of flat lay photography at that time. Not that the studio didn't do it, it's just that 45-degree view was most popular because you're able to kind of create the environment and the depth with that standard point of view. Beyond that, you want to be mindful of the details when you're shooting. So when shooting your food, be mindful of the foreground and the background and the surrounding space of your food. Fill the scene with ingredients and props that relate to the food, such as ingredients, sauces, oils, and cooking utensils that provide the viewer clues on how you made the dish, but also kind of point and give direction to what you want the viewer to see. Because maybe you want us to look, maybe you're going to use a fork or a spatula or some kind of utensil to kind of point the eye in a particular direction. Sometimes you don't, like if you want napkins and plates and things to dress the scene, you don't want those to be too bright to distract you from your food. You want them to complement and draw us into the final plate or presentate or hero food that's on the plate. So beyond that, remember that you've got layers: foreground, the midground, and the background. Just be careful not to clutter the space. You want to make sure that the background props and supporting ingredients don't steal the show. It's all about your food. You don't want your food to be... You want your food to be the hero. Remember, less is more. That's a big Target, one of their big sayings, less is more, and it's true. A lot of people, a lot of things have kind of, you want to minimize to the lowest possible degree of elements, but you want it to be enough that tells the story. Most importantly, make sure your food is fresh. As food sits out, it cools down, things begin to melt if it's cold, etc. It becomes less appealing. So as time goes on, you want to make sure that if you're going to shoot something, put in a dummy piece of food. Something that I talked about when I did the recap of our show with Kirk Montgomery on WZZM. We did a shoot for a barbecue place, Famous Dave's. It was Famous Dave's. I couldn't remember it last time, but Famous Dave's, we did this big shoot for them because they were doing beer can chicken. It was this big promo that they were doing during 4th of July, and we were doing this big shoot. They made 20 chickens that day. I kid you not. So we had 20 chickens that we made. They will go through and they look at the best one, and they kind of say, like, okay, these are our top 5, and this is going to be our top 1. So if something happens to the top chicken, the hero, they can replace it with another. But in the meantime, they've got one of the other 20 that they can throw in, get the lighting right, get all the elements that you're going to have in the photo just right, because again, you want the details and everything to work. And then when it's time for the fresh chicken, the one that's going to be the hero shot, so it's heated right, it looks tasty, it looks good. You put that in, snap, snap, snap. All that hard work you did at the beginning of the day is all done in a matter of seconds or minutes, because when things start to, as that time goes on, things start to not look fresh. And I've seen all kinds of crazy things. They will use not motor oil, but think of something like a lubricant like WD-40. They'll use to spray on something to make it oily or shiny or fresh. They've used, I know that one of my funny stories that my friend and photo assistant who works at that food studio would tell me in his time as a studio assistant is that somebody made a bunch of cookies to bring in for this photo shoot. Well, the cookies were not edible cookies. I mean, you could eat them, but they weren't made for consumption. They were made just to photograph. So they're made with ingredients that aren't that great. It's just something to hold the shape and form that you want to give the illusion of what that final cookie is going to look like in the cookbook. Well, they made all these 2 sheets of cookies. They brought them in, set them down. They went out to the car to go get some more stuff for the shoot. They came back, and most of the cookies were gone. And one of the guys there was saying, there's something not right about those cookies. And they're like, what are you talking about? You ate some of those cookies? They weren't made for consumption. And that's the thing, is that now the whole shoot's ruined because those cookies were made for, for being photographed only, and somebody went ahead and just started eating them, and they ruined the entire shoot. So if you're ever working in a food studio, don't just go about eating strange food, because sometimes they even use those T-pins. If you guys remember dissection in high school, they have those nice little T-pins that they use when you're dissecting critters for biology class. And those T-pins they will put inside of a bun to hold a burger together with the bottom bun and all the contents inside that burger. Well, somebody decided that, again, they're going to go ahead and there's this dish of food sitting here, I guess I'll just eat it. There's a big T-pin sitting in there, and I'm pretty sure that they got an unrequested tongue pierce from that nice T-pin. So the thing is, guys, if you see a plate of strange food sitting somewhere and it looks appealing, you might not want to touch that food because you don't know whose it is and you don't know what it's for. And you don't want to eat food that's been in a food studio, because if they're spraying it down with things to make it look appealing, you want to be privy to what that is, because, hey, we don't want to be consuming WD-40 on top of, some pizza. But it's really cool what they do. I worked in a food studio where 65% or more of your frozen food section is photographed, and it was really interesting to see how all that stuff works behind the scenes. So if you ever get a chance to see how they do behind the scenes photo shoots for commercial photography, I highly encourage you to give that a shot. So got distracted. We'll get right back into it. So we talked about the details and what's important that goes into the food stuff. Suggested equipment is always to make sure that you're using good lenses. You want to utilize prime lenses, macro lenses, telephoto lenses, anything greater than 50 millimeters, because it'll give you things that are perspectively correct. It won't distort it and give you barrel distortion. And that's what I talk about here. These lenses minimize that distortion and retain the natural scale and perspective of what you're shooting. They also allow you to give you maximum control of depth of field. So if you want to blur the background or include it, it'll give you that opportunity. And the size of the focal length with your lenses will differ depending on what camera system you are using. So be mindful of that. It'll be different if you're using an Olympus versus a full frame. And if you have trouble deciding, you can always stop here, see me at the camera shop, and I will always guide you in the best lens or camera or tool for the job. That's what I'm here for. So don't be shy in that respect. Food photography is all about maximizing control, so have a tripod. That'll offer stability, and it allows you to just kind of sit there and trigger a timer and allow you to make those minute changes on the table that you're using to photograph without having to pick up and keep on handholding. Because if you handhold, you're going to be changing your angle in and out, in and out. So it's just good to shoot on the tripod and maintain as much control as possible, because that is what photography is all about. Controlling the light, controlling your scene, controlling all those visual elements for your viewer to see and digest. As I was kind of talking about some behind the scenes things, R.M. Christensen has said that Elmer's glue for milk and cereal is a commercial trick too, and they have done that. I've seen that. I've also seen them take whipping cream and mix that with like sour cream to kind of make a thicker kind of like liquidy substance, because when they do the little droplets of milk, they take a little washer and they drop it by this little not speedometer thing, but there's this like chromo meter that when you drop it past it, it triggers the camera to fire to get those little droplets of milk, and they later take those and Photoshop those into the spoon of cereal, which I have seen done, by the way. So multi-meal cereals, I have actually seen how they set up those shoots. And believe it or not, when we're talking about they make 20, like the famous Dave shoot where they made 20 different chickens, this will kind of blow your mind. They will take cooking trays, so the baking trays that you'd put in the oven, cookie trays, and they will take several bags of multi-meal cereal. We'll just say their Cocoa Puffs version, and they sit there with long tweezers and they look through each and every bag and they pick out each and every little puff that they want to have, and they'll have a hero tray, they'll have kind of a okay tray, and then they'll have just kind of a burner tray, and they will put these on cooking racks. And I have seen 3 or 4 trays of just straight up Cocoa Puffs, and they're only going to use maybe 4, 5, 6 of those puffs on the spoon, and the spoon is just being held by a big clamp with the spoon, and they're putting that little bit of it's not even milk. I think it's something else that they kind of put in there that, you know, you maybe like a cornmeal mix or something, not cornmeal, but cornstarch mix, just to kind of give it that feel. And they just kind of place the Cocoa Puffs on there and they shoot. And then they'll put in those droplets I talked about earlier with a little kind of meter device and kind of Photoshop it all together. And that's what you get on the front of your cereal box. So it's actually quite interesting to see the whole magic of photography in a food studio. Really, really interesting. And there's jobs that go with that. Food stylists. There's actually people whose only job it is to cook these items, to prepare these items, and to be in a position to continue to make them look edible and very tasty as time goes on throughout the shoot, so that they don't have to keep on creating a new slice of pizza. Because once you have that one slice of pizza on there, you want to keep it the same. So they'll put extra cheese on it. They'll kind of pull it up and make sure it's melty. They'll use a heat torch on it to kind of heat it up and make it look melty. So it is really fun to see. Why can't I see you? It's just different colors flashing on my phone. Nancy, what I would do is exit out and get back in and see if you can watch. It just might be the data that's coming through, or maybe it's a bad connection on my part. I don't know if anyone else is having a problem, but typically that's what I get on my cell phone too. I'll stream myself live next to the computer so I can see who is commenting for some reason if they're not sharing their commentary. And sometimes it'll just have that garbled mess, and that's sometimes because I'm using data and I'm not using like the Wi-Fi that I have. If I'm using Wi-Fi, I get a stronger stream. So that's something that might be what's causing that issue. And I think Sandy was commenting the of people eating the hero food when they shouldn't be. And Bert is saying he's getting hungry. Thanks. And hey, Bert, no problem. Here's where it takes a turn for the pits of your stomachs, guys. If you're hungry, get ready, because here we go. We're going to get into your images, and I am going to share the application window. Here we go. This is the plates of food. So I'll start with what Kirk and I shared with you here this week, and then I'll get into your submissions, guys. Hopefully you guys can all see this. Starting from the top of everything. So I did the images that I took these on my cell phone. I was at Nipote's. Nipote's is a cute little Italian restaurant downtown Muskegon, just near, where is that? Near the old farmer's market, just kind of off the main drag there. And there's a lot of revitalization down there with the building. Rake's Brewing is down over that area. There's a bunch of other restaurants and places that are opening up. So head over in that area. Really great opportunity. They have some really nice window light. Great presentation with their food. They take some pride in that, and that's the interesting thing about restaurants, is that restaurants are starting to, and a lot of places had in fine dining, but that is starting to kind of trickle down into standard dining, is that presentation is important, because eating food is an experience, but it's also an art. And I told you guys this last week when we were doing the review. If you guys want to be inspired to create beautiful photography and just think of things critically, I invite you to watch on Netflix Chef's Table. Chef's Table is just this beautifully made documentary, several seasons, I think 7 or 8 now, of just different chefs who have just come through their own, and they kind of tell their backstory, how they got into creating different dishes, and they talk about the presentation, and they talk about how they went through this creative process, and like, this is how I can do this differently and present it to the world. It will change the way you view photography. It'll be inspirational, and you'll get to see a great way of cinematography of presenting food, because whatever you can do cinematographically, or in a cinematic way, you can interpret that and present that photographically. So without further ado, here's some food. Here are my examples of a charcuterie plate that they have at Nipote's. So this is the flat lay style. Again, I'm just holding my phone up again. I got this great window light coming in from the kind of the northwestern side of the building, and just kind of brightening up the photo a little bit. And then here's the, I'll get out of this here real quick. I think things are kind of going a little slow. There we go. And here's kind of the angled view to kind of show you some depth from the start of the plate to the back of the plate. Just kind of, you know, the difference between a flat lay and that standard point of view. And then, of course, my friend Salad, who sat down for dinner with me, I wanted to shoot that because I wanted to do this as a Google review. And this is kind of the traditional approach of kind of seeing it in front of you and just trying to see like which way is going to be the best way of presenting these. My dish of mushroom ravioli, and kind of doing that standard approach. And I like the flat lays. They're just more interesting to me. I don't mind the standard approach. I like it here with the charcuterie plate because there's more elements to that. But see, like the things in the background that are distracting. We've got the vase right here in the back left. We've got this knife back here pointing to this glass of empty water. Like, is this important? I mean, see this visual cue? This visual cue is like, look at this glass. Now look at this vase. Those are things that you can eliminate, whereas here, they're not as distracting. They just kind of look like elements on the table. We don't really know what they are. They could be ingredients. They could just be kind of elements on the table that are there to, you know, or make ornate the table. That's just something that you kind of have to judge on your own. But I'm not a fan of having those elements there. Especially like here, the salad doesn't really tell the story of what I'm eating here. This little black pepper shaker, it doesn't really help add to my story. I would much rather have a clearer background than nothing there, than these things there. Then we had Kirk Montgomery's dishes, and he had this great, I forgot what it's some kind of chicken thing that he did, but he's got these nice tomatoes cut, and he's got this nice backlight coming from back here, and just kind of that standard approach of looking at your food here. And, well, excuse me, was not expecting that. He's got this other chicken dish and these nice mushrooms and Brussels sprouts. And again, this is kind of thrown out of depth of field because your hero is the chicken. You want to look at this. These are just supporting elements. And he's got this nice window light coming from the back. And that's typical of what you will see with food photography. It's nice to have a stronger light source coming from the back than in the front. The front light is the fill light. It's kind of nice to have this nice little highlight on the back of the food right here. So that's typically what you want to see from your food. We're getting it here. With kind of looks like some prime rib, there's a shadow here on the plate. You kind of want to stay away from shadows in the foreground. You want things to be nicely lit, this nice fill light here, but just that nice highlight on the back. And of course we got his green salad with his ribs and his potatoes here, and window light coming from the back. So I'll quickly go to see if you guys are saying anything about what's happening out here. And Nancy says she can see me now, so that's good. So it was just a matter of closing and coming back. And Sandy's saying, looks like the good food. So it sounds like everything's hitting home for you guys. So we'll get back into the food here. And this one is from Jennifer Walsh, and she sent this tasty cake. And this is a really great example. I would like to see, Jennifer, just a little bit of fill light back here. It's not overly distracting not to have that fill light, but we've got this nice window light coming from back here. Just be nice to kind of fill in some of these shadows just a little bit. You probably shot this at a wedding, just kind of in passing for a client. So you don't have a lot of control unless you're bringing a flash or reflector. And I know from shooting weddings that it takes a lot to kind of set that stuff up and to really kind of light the scene as well as you want when you're just kind of like you're just kind of running and gunning and taking those shots. But it's nice that you use this nice natural light. You've got it coming from the left, and it's that nice kind of blue light. Everything's really clean. I can tell that my whites are white down here and here, so I know that the color balance is fairly accurate, and that this theme in this wedding is very blue, because we got these nice blue flowers that are probably in the bouquets. We got this nice little blue sprinkling that we're kind of seeing transcend from the big cupcake for the wedding couple and the smaller cupcakes for the guests. So I really like this. When I saw it on the thumbnail, I'm like, oh, this is nice. And it's just, the elements are nicely placed. We know that this is kind of sitting on this table for serving. This burlap has kind of become a popular thing for do-it-yourself weddings. And we've got, instead of having this on the top, we just kind of have the nice little, couple decoration on the table, which is nice to see. So a little crowded, but not too distracting, because what it is doing is we're effectively telling the story. We've got cupcakes for the guests. We've got the main cake for the bride and the groom, which, hey, this is the cue that it's a wedding. The nice curvature of them here is kind of emulating the curvature of the cupcake here, and it's giving this nice kind of shape here. That's kind of moving me into the background from the foreground, so I'm looking here and kind of moving up through the back. And we've got these elements of the flowers that are further telling the story that it's a wedding, because it's probably the bouquets of some sort. We've got these from Nancy Steele. She has some 3 dishes using these elements very well. We've got some lighting coming from here. We've got some spaghetti, and so the light is, the shadow's this way, so we can tell the light's coming from this way. And what I know she took these with her phone, so what I would do, Nancy, is give yourself a little bit more environment to work with, just to kind of have like it would be nice to have some of those elements that help make the pasta. Maybe it was like maybe the pasta fork, or maybe an empty, like kind of like the pasta in the background that shows the uncooked pasta, and maybe shooting it from the top. And those are some things that I would try next time, just giving us a little bit more space to see maybe the supporting elements of this cast, right? We know it goes into the spaghetti dish, but what are the supporting elements? But very good use of light right here. Maybe a little bit of fill light in the back just to kind of fill in the shadow, but overall good. You got this nice piece of lasagna. I can tell that your phone flash fired, it looks like right here. Again, try to find that natural light. Natural light is going to be the best element in creating successful food photography. So you might have shot this at night because you're eating dinner and you're really excited about sharing your photos. Just in the future, if you're going to pursue this just for the sake of pursuing your food photography, I would encourage you highly to try as much as possible to shoot with that natural light. But it does look like a very tasty piece of lasagna. I know I love my mom's lasagna. Some of the best that I've had. Now this is one that I really like because you're shooting one of the elements of food, and we didn't say what it had to be. Like it had to be a prepared dish. These tomatoes, probably cherry tomatoes of some sort, are outside in the garden. I love that you've got these nice drops of water, maybe freshly watered or fresh rain. So I like seeing that. I like seeing this one when you submitted that. And then you've got this barbecue. Again, we're seeing a lot of the barbecue. And what I would like to see a little bit from this is maybe the pulled barbecue on the bun, and kind of on the plate, maybe with some other elements. Like if it's a family barbecue, some fun elements like maybe some kind of potato chip on the plate with it, or something that's fun with like the picnic table covering, and just giving a little bit of more environment and make it more about, even though it would have a bun with the other supporting elements, we still know it's about the barbecue because we're kind of seeing, like you're kind of sliding the top bun back and the bottom bun out, and you're kind of exposing what's in the middle. But overall, you're making me hungry. You've got some good dishes here. And then finally, you've got this nice chicken. It was like stuffed chicken, something pepperoni mozzarella. I really love the window light. I can tell this is window light. because of the color cast that we've got here. You're shooting from the top. Again, I would give yourself just a little bit more space to exist in, maybe those supporting elements, or this one maybe doing the flat lay from shooting from above and down below. And then if you had, some mozzarella kind of sprinkled around, because I see a wooden counter back here, whether that's like a cutting board. If that's a cutting board, shoot high enough and then sprinkle some of the cheese on the cutting board, maybe with some of the seasoning, like some of the granulated peppercorn or something that you had on, that you kind of put on the top, or the oregano, whatever you had for your seasoning on top, and just kind of putting those elements kind of sprinkled in, adding a little bit of texture and flow to what you've got here. But overall, good job, Nancy. I appreciate that. This is kind of what I was talking about with your barbecue. This is from R.M. Christensen. He shot this a couple years ago for a local sandwich shop. And you've got this great kind of, he's utilizing the wrapping that probably goes into the dish if they're doing like baskets, like basket sandwiches. And we got this nice honey Dijon mustard. We got this nice little highlight on the tomato. So we got this nice light coming in from here, and you can see right there this nice highlight in the back. So we know our window light's coming from the right side, and you can kind of tell that because we got this nice little highlight. So there's some kind of window light coming from the immediate right, the back right, or it's kind of wrapping around. Nice elements in the background because we got these little gradients of slatted metal, kind of like metal roofing. I don't know if this is something that was on their booth wall that they had on that was introduced or that was put there, but I like kind of the table kind of going and receding into the background, and kind of the elements in the front. I would like to see maybe the vase kind of take up this space over here. I know you can't go reshoot this, Ryan, because it was 2017, and maybe even tighter. Like I could probably go a vertical with this, maybe do 8x10 or 11x14, and we can kind of lose the edges of the table on the left and right, and just kind of lose those receding lines and just make it more about the food. But I love the lighting. I love the food. The bacon is looking a little dry, and this is just my only critique of this comes from kind of the food studio with the bacon looking a little dry. As an example, what they would do is they would come in with the heat gun and they would kind of heat it up a little bit, not to char it, but just to kind of heat up those greases and those oils just to make them look fresh. Or they would kind of paint them in with, again, like a WD-40 or some kind of other other lubricant, which is, you think it's crazy, but they actually do that. Nancy's saying great tips. I hope they're well received, Nancy. You did a good job there. And now the other Sandy's saying we are just starving, and everyone's going to want to go eat after this. I understand. I'm on the way to do that too. So from Ryan, we've got this shot from Sandy. The other Sandy has July cupcakes, and this is really nice. She's got this nice reflective table. So a lot of people will do this. There's a lot of food studios that will use. I forgot what kind of material that is. It's not fiberglass, it's plexiglass. They'll use plexiglass, put that down, they'll kind of use a black one or a white one to reflect that. I can tell that this is like a wicker kind of picnic table with a glass top because you can kind of see that through, and we're getting this nice reflection because she has it in a darker area. This might be the patio or deck of her house with some nice natural light out this way. I'm totally guessing. If I'm close, other Sandy, let me know. And she's got this great window light. She's incorporating a textured background. She's throwing the depth of field, so we have this this nice field of view. I would like to have seen maybe just coming up a little bit and aiming down. It would be nice to kind of see maybe some flower or some of the elements of of what you're incorporating. You got some blackberries on one. You got some some crackly graham or granola on one, some sprinkles on the other. It'd be interesting to see some of the elements that will go into this. And you're presenting a lot of different flavors. So I guess the incorporating elements would be difficult, because if you did one at a time, like this, probably this mint graham cracker one, you could kind of incorporate like big pieces of graham cracker, maybe one on a small plate, and then some of the other elements. You've got some like the blackberry one would be fun because you could do that as an individual with some blackberries on the table, maybe with some kind of some kind of the elements that go into making the frosting. It's what I would look for is like cupcake photography and kind of see what kind of elements that they introduce into that. In fact, let's do that just real. We'll do that after, so stick around because I actually want to see what some people have done for that. She said she just used her patio, and that's what I kind of assumed. And she said, I'm going to critique myself, and I should have used a different aperture. And yes, I needed some more props. But your lighting is really good, and this is kind of the lighting that you want. This is nice, soft lighting. But I'm not opposed to the depth of field. I think the depth of field's great. You threw the background out just enough that we've got a nice textured background. We can tell it's brick. And if I didn't know any better, I thought it was a display case. If I didn't see this rounded edge in the back of your shot here, I would not have known that was a table. It kind of looks like a glass case or something inside of a restaurant, and you're just kind of shooting it just close enough that you're presenting it in such a way. But I really like that. But I'm interested in seeing what cupcake photography looks like. We've got this from Sean Church. I don't know if Sean Church is the owner of Napotes, the main restaurateur there and the chef. If he is, and you're watching, Sean, give us a shout. But he said, thank you for using Napotes for your images. Hey, Sean, you just got lucky that I had those in my phone, and that I really love the images because there are some in my phone that I have from restaurants that didn't have natural light that I didn't use because the lighting wasn't good. But he's using, you can see that he's got elements of his kitchen in here, if this is in fact the owner. And you've got kind of the kitchen elements here, so we know that this plate of food is being ready to be served. And you can tell it's fresh because we've got this nice, the sauce isn't dry. You've got this nice little catch highlight here. We can tell the meat is kind of nice and wet. There's still some liquid here, so we know that it's fresh. The lighting, we got some window light coming here, but you can tell these are mostly the lights coming from above. So moving it to a table that has better lighting would be better to kind of present this plate of food, but taking the care to kind of plate it and having some of the garnish there, really like that. This is kind of what I'm talking about with the natural light. We've got this nice table, probably one of their patio seating tables, I would guess, because it looks like it's outside because we've got this hard light right back here, and it's maybe close to where some kind of shaded apparatuses, whether that's an umbrella or kind of the edge, like an awning of the building. But we've got these nice elements like the Pellegrino and the glass out in the back. I'd like to see the Pellegrino off in this negative space here. But I really love that, hey, this is the salmon salad. We've got this nice big close focus. We've got some nice sharpness here. The crumbly cheese, the tomatoes look nice and savory because we got this nice highlight, a little highlight here. So really good composition there. He's got some shots of the asparagus inside, and I really like that we're doing the food photography. I don't know if you could move this wooden thing. It's probably a menu. If we could have moved that and maybe had some plates on the other side of this, it would have given it a nice symmetrical shot. But I really like the concentration of like this ingredient here of just making it about the asparagus. And of course it's Michigan obtains asparagus, then it's kind of going back to like one of the things that we're known for in Michigan is asparagus, strawberries, cherries, and some other things. Now this is my favorite. This is a flat lay, and even though we don't have a completed dish, we have some crumbled Parmesan, we have some butter and some eggs, and we have some we can tell we've got a mixing bowl here, a cutting board, a sauce dish of some sort. I think that might be where the Parmesan cheese is, or maybe some salt. And then we just have this nice kind of tabletop linen, and then like a hot plate kind of thing with a mitten or whatnot. But I love that it's a flat lay. Again, these are my favorites. I'm a little more predisposed to these. I like how he took time to kind of sprinkle some Parmesan through there. This actually might be where some of the raviolis are made, because we know, if you guys know what goes into pasta or raviolis or tortellini, ravioli, to kind of place those together, you do need to do an egg wash. An egg wash is important to kind of solidify those and kind of quick fry them or get them to stick together. But I just know that these are some of the cooking elements or baking elements that they're using in the restaurant. Probably some house-fed chickens, not house-fed, but farm-fed. You know, the farm-fed, the farm stand chicken eggs, not kind of the ones that you just get from the grocery store that are all white. So I kind of like everything that's kind of happening in this, is that it's the ingredients. There isn't one kind of dish that supports the other. It's just kind of these elements that, like, hey, we're baking or we're creating food. So I really like that one. We've got another one from the probably a beef stroganoff, if I had to guess. And we're kind of taking this approach here. Would like to see this as a flat lay, just to kind of see some of the supporting elements, maybe like the fork and knife, kind of like how I had in the corner. But nice, you know, again, nice presentation, nice Parmesan cheese. Whoever likes the Parmesan really likes it. And the glass is a little distracting, but just kind of seeing, maybe seeing it from this way, or adding some supporting elements in the background, like instead of the glass, maybe the Parmesan cheese grater. So just kind of thinking of those things. A little bit more fill light towards the front. It looks like the light coming in from the back is really nice. Again, just kind of shooting around, maybe shooting from the other direction, not trying to get in front of your shadow, to kind of light the plate from the other direction to see what kind of shot you would get. This is a really good one. Again, we've got some of these compositional elements that are kind of telling the story. We know it's at a restaurant. We've got another plate of food back here, but we've got this nice spinach cranberry salad with maybe a garlic aioli sauce or something like that, I'm willing to guess. So cranberry walnut salad with that garlic aioli, something to that nature. Again, all conjecturing based upon what I see. And we can tell that we've got some olive oil dressing on here, just because the oil is kind of giving this nice little glint to the salad. We know the light's coming from the back because we got this light source coming back this way, but we also have some light coming this way. So kind of some nice fill light all around on that. And a really healthy spinach cranberry walnut salad. And then we've got this, is this still, yep, still from Sean. This is a nice little asparagus and some kind of little piece of maybe fish or some kind of thing going on there. Maybe some kind of white fish that's privy to the lake, or a red meat that I can't identify, because I am not a general consumer of a lot of meats. I only know it after I see it. But he's got some of these nice elements. I like this nice highlight on the food here. You can tell it's fresh and glinty. You've got the kind of the tea in the background, some of the other elements. But this is a nice presentation of going this way. So good job there. And then we're back at the beginning. And I promised you guys, and Brian does a lot of commercial photography. He says flat lays have to be my favorite, my go-to when shooting food, because Brian does a lot of food photography out in Grand Rapids, in the Grand Rapids area. So if you kind of look up Brian Essler, you'll see a good selection of his work out there, I'm sure. I don't know if you've got a page, Brian, but he does have an Instagram. You can check out his stuff. Any questions for me, guys? This is a good point. I wanted to go back to cupcake photography and kind of see what people were doing with some of those elements with cupcakes. But anything that you guys want to ask me while we're at it, this is a good opportunity to do so. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen here, and I'm going to share the fantastic food thing here. And I'm going to search cupcake, if I can spell cake right, photography. Ooh, wow. Images, and there's all kinds. There's dark, there's still life, there's Pinterest, professional, artsy, birthday. Again, I love the categories at the top of a page because you can kind of get a feel for everything that's happening there. But I wanted to see some elemental ones that kind of introduced how cupcakes were being made. Sandy, this would be one way of doing it. It's just kind of presenting one that would be the hero. Now, in your case, you had like, what, 6 individual cupcakes? So it's hard to kind of decide which one is going to take precedent over the other because you're kind of presenting us with a lot of them. If you just had one style that you made, I think this is a good way because you're starting with one and you're kind of receding into the background and they fall off in the background. And again, we got this natural light shooting by a window and blurring that out. There was one that I really wanted to see. This was one of them. This one is kind of like this chocolate, looks like maybe triple chocolate. So we've got a chocolate cupcake, chocolate frosting, and then chocolate fudge. And then they're doing like these little small chocolate bars, and it may be an Oreo cookie. There's hints of Oreo crumble. Some of the big chocolate bar kind of split up here, and then we've got two uncovered cupcakes in the back, kind of in this little in some of these cupcake trays, the presentation trays, and they're drizzling the chocolate. And they're using like a dark stone background, maybe dark black wood, and they got this nice little hint of blue. So all these dark tones, and you're really seeing just like you're getting this nice highlight, and we can just kind of really see the chocolate kind of pop up against this dark background, which is actually really successful. I like this one with the chocolate shavings. They've got this big bar of chocolate with chocolate cupcakes. So that's kind of the nice thing, is that they kind of just shaved that and sprinkled it sporadically around. This would be ideal if you were kind of identifying one cupcake at a time, is just kind of letting it stand on its own and getting really creative with the backgrounds. Like that green one having like a mint green background and some kind of pattern top that goes with that. Let's see what else is here for multiple cupcakes. Here we go. Something like this is kind of fun, is that you're just kind of looking at each individual one and the background kind of falls off. They're making it more about this one here. This is one like the creative process where they're just holding up a spoon, putting some caramel on the top. Those are probably dulce de leche cupcakes, I'm willing to bet. And this is kind of cute. You know, they're just highlighting one cupcake with the heart and the little present. That would be like a birthday box, and that's kind of what they say there. Single cupcakes. Ooh, that looks good. I'm gonna have to go eat after this, guys. Yeah, I'm not seeing something else. As far as like, this is kind of cool. I like so this would be another example, even though this is like one style cupcake, they have like this really interesting and unique presentation board. So they got like a cut of wood from a chainsaw, but because it's chocolate, they took some cocoa powder, which they probably used to make the frosting, and they just have it with a small spoon and a dish in the foreground. Very dark background. Again, that's what I'm kind of noticing with a lot of these darker images, that they're you know, they just have this nice little kind of shunt of light coming in off to the left, highlighting the food, and really kind of putting emphasis right here on this one particular cupcake. These are receding more into the background. But these elements, these supporting elements, are darker. The background is out of focus. We start to lose focus past this point here. And we've got like this nice black, kind of bluish background. And so you really kind of, your eyes don't sit here long. They're kind of right here on these kind of other elements. Here's what I would have done with your other one, with your assorted, is doing a flat lay with it would be nice, with kind of a textured background, maybe something bright, and having it shot from above and seeing the individual cupcakes. That looks like what they've done here. Oh, here we go. This is a perfect example. You have all these different elements. They broke this one up into 4 different areas, and they had like, this is a green tea infused one, this is a strawberry, this is white chocolate, and this is standard chocolate, and they just have little supporting elements to let you know which one, like what some of the things were that went into each one. So that's the last one that I'm kind of sitting on, would be a good one. And she's saying, oh man, I wish I would have referred to this first. This is why I love the internet. There's no shortage of inspiration. And I wouldn't necessarily say that you have to do exactly what you're seeing here, but let it influence what you're going to do. Let it inspire what you're going to do, because and experiment. You know, when you make these things, the nice thing about cupcakes is that, you know, the frosting might dry out if you pipe frosting on it right away, but as long as you get to it relatively quickly, I think you'll be okay, like not letting them dry out in the air for too long. If you're going to make them, pipe the frosting on, and then kind of set them up and present them to shoot. The biggest thing that you'd want to be worried about is supporting elements like the strawberries, whether the strawberries are drying out. Like if you've been shooting for a couple hours, the strawberries will dry out or something. So that's something. She says, maybe I should have put them on a stand. You could have done that. You kind of need to have a slight angle just to make sure you know it's cupcakes, and rightfully so. You know, a lot. you know, a lot of people can kind of put two and two together. That's what this last one I left off on. They have that slight little angle to kind of give it the cupcake thing. I did like this. I liked seeing this one. This is a flat lay. And what sometimes if it's a flat lay, you can kind of see the little ruffle of the cupcake container, the like the wrapper, and that's enough to kind of give it that you know, and other things that will, the supporting cast, the supporting elements, like we know how big a strawberry is, we know how big a blueberry is and cherries, like they're using here. Those other elements will help give you scale. Scale is another thing in photography that we use, and that's actually in food photography, everyone. One of the interesting things is in scale, most of our typical silverware that we use at home is too big for food photography. They actually have special dishes and special utensils that are a lot smaller than what they appear in the photographs because of how food photography works, your angle of approach. This one's fun. Look at all of those. And then they simply just put it on a white backdrop with just a fork and a knife. Here's a crazier one. Now they introduced the coffee with the spoon and all kind of the little elements that went into it: chocolate, raspberries, fruit, nuts, different things like that. So, you know, not being totally 100, you know, crazy critical on all you guys. These are just things to have fun and to create. If you guys ever wanted a recap on food photography, like Justin, I went and tried to do this again, we could share that just as a Facebook post. So if you try to rehash this after, like, here's what I attempted my first time, here's what I'm doing the second time, after after kind of we did this critique process, I would love to see your before and after, because that is kind of showing, going through the effort. I'd love to do a Facebook post on that and be like, hey, Sandy, if you decide to do this, you decide to reevaluate it, say this is what I submitted and this is what I did to challenge myself and to push my work forward and to try to do it better or to try to do it differently with different inspiration after kind of recapping and reviewing everything. I would be happy to share where you came from and where you're going, because that is always good to see that growth, and it's encouraging to see you guys do. And we're getting ready to wrap up, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to throw them out. Brian real quick said, one thing I like to do is to get an overhead shot of someone putting sprinkle toppings on it. Adds a little human element that you don't often see when doing these types of photography. And I would double down on that, Brian, some like that one of the caramel drizzle going on top of the dulce de leche not muffins, but cupcakes. That spoon is there. Now, you don't have the hand, but if you have someone with good-looking hands in your family and you want to have a hand model, that human element always helps to anchor something in, because now we know something's happening, right? There's somebody, like, who is that, right? It adds another level to the whole mix. Like, whose hand is that? Is that the chef? Is that the person who's making it? Is that the person who's going to eat it? So it's just kind of that nice little extra to kind of put in there. And Sandy's saying, I want to do it over. And she's saying, this was very helpful for me. And I would encourage you, Sandy, if you do this over and you have some resubmits or something that you would like to do to kind of like, hey, this was my initial one and this is what this is my reattempt, or if anyone who's watching this decides to do that, I would love to see your results and love to share that with our Facebook fans and followers, because it's always encouraging to see where you came from on something, and after receiving these tips and tricks, taking it to that next level. So with that, guys, I really appreciate you guys tuning in and taking the time to participate in our Facebook photo challenge. It's always a pleasure to see what you guys are creating. I really appreciate you guys who are participating. Nancy, I really appreciate all the images you sent. Sean, I appreciate yours, and everyone else who participated. You guys rock, and I just hope that you guys continue to fuel that creative side of you photographically and just continue to create. I know that Kirk and I have talked about doing some other photo challenges, but WZZM was doing, I think they had an anniversary that came up, and so it was like their an anniversary week where they were kind of putting an emphasis on how old the station is and how long they've been doing a certain program. So we're hoping to kind of kick that back up, and we have some ideas for you. So right now we don't have anything, guys, but if you have anything creative that you would like to submit, that, hey, I reattempted this, or you reattempted one of these photo challenges, and you guys want to kind of like, this is where I started and this is where I went, I would love to see that, and maybe we do that for another one of our photo challenges. We say, hey, anything that you've submitted up to this point, and you have a chance to redo and resubmit after gaining some of this knowledge and doing. I would love to share your work with everyone, because it's always great to see people grow. So in the meantime, guys, I'm going to get to it. I have made myself very hungry looking at all this great food photography, and I am off to go make some dinner myself. And I hope that you guys all had, again, a great weekend. I appreciate all of you who participated. I hope you continue to do so. And if you have any questions about your photography and how you can continue to push your creativity, don't be shy. Feel free to contact me. I'm at the store Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., and I'm more than happy to lay a helping hand. So in the meantime, get out there, be safe, and always remember to stay creative. So have a good night and a good evening, and we'll see you guys later. Take care.